No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. Move it low, move it low. We fly that flow, move it low. Spread that gap, no time to nap, no time to nap. Hit that roll, funk and control, funk and control. Bounce that wall, bounce that all. We fly it all, funk it all. We fly it all. Funky and free, we fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoop's got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split, it's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all.
Hey friends, my name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Whoop Wednesday. Let me hit the one button that I forgot. You always gotta forget at least one thing. You were just watching my... At the moment I'm calling this frame the Stank-A-Lotta-Puss, but I don't know if that name is gonna stick. This is my 3-inch frame that I put DJI 04 light wide flywoo with the old school better gyro. It's got Oddity RC 1405 4800 kV motors. You were just watching it on a 4S 850 mAh battery. Like I said, 3-inch prop, Squish X design. With that 4S 850 mAh battery, this thing is 249 grams. I can't believe it's you know, things weighing 249 grams is like a meme, right? Like anything that you want to be legal, you say is 249 grams. This actually is with that battery. You can certainly run it on a smaller battery. You can get this all the way down to sub 200 with a less angry set of motors and a smaller battery, like a 4S 550 Tattoo R-Line would absolutely work on this. You can also run lighter weight hardware. I have big giant socket-headed M3 hardware all over this thing. So you could very easily get this down below 200 grams. I like the way 3-inch rigs fly at like 250, 260-ish. The DJI 04 wide is awesome in here. You were watching the second battery that I flew with it. I have batteries 3 and 4 that I can play that I actually did an edit with. I did an edit with these 3 batteries that I flew in half decent light for patrons, and there's 2 versions of the edit. There's a no stabilization, just raw flight footage version of the edit. where you can just barely see the corners of this UV filter, which is kind of annoying because you do want to run a UV filter to protect the lens on these. And then there's a gyro flow stabilized version. This is the Flywoo DJI 04 Lite wide with the old school 04 Pro gyro, the MP66, the better gyro that's supposed to be perfect. And so for patrons over on my Discord in Patron Hangout, you've got two versions of the same edit, and I've got a little poll up there. I would love you to go watch one of them and then watch the other one. See if you can tell a difference. See if you can actually tell that one of, other than the corners of the screen being blacked out a little bit. So yeah, can you actually even tell a difference? B, if you can tell a difference, which one do you like better? It's the exact same everything, the exact same edit, just with the visibility of the top layer turned off and on. The top layer being the gyro flow layer in Premiere, the bottom layer being the just raw flight footage layer. I guess I should have added a third option in there. Can't tell the difference. That was kind of silly of me. Can I edit the poll? Let's see. More, add reaction. Is it a reaction? It's not a reaction. Reply, create thread, and mark unread. Nope. Oh, that's kind of annoying. But if you can't tell a difference, leave a comment in the Patron Hangout section letting me know that you couldn't tell a difference, and don't vote if you can't see a difference. So yeah, that was this guy. Propellers are the HQ 3x2.5x3. These are my favorite 3-inch props when you've got a nice aggressive motor on here. 1404, 1405, 1504, 1604 even. This has reminded me what really, really, really powerful rigs fly like, especially in terms of response time. A lot of these smaller builds, including the open prop builds, fly great, but they don't have that like absolute razor sharp flight characteristic that we get from 5-inch builds typically. You can get that from smaller stuff. You just have to run motors that are a little bit bigger than like what we conventionally put on these. These 1405s, for example, I know 1405 doesn't sound a lot bigger than 1404, but it is. This is a 14 millimeter wide motor, 5 millimeters tall. You got to think about like the percentages here. When we go from a 1404, 4 millimeters tall, to a 1405, 5 millimeters tall, that's 25% extra height. That's huge because the height of the stator does the majority of the work. You can kind of see that if you drop into the stator volume calculator, which I'm putting a link to in the chat because it's really, really handy. And so if we come in here, we go 1404, which is that's a big motor. 1404 is a big ass motor, and they're great. But then if we also look at a 1405, look at the difference. So the surface area is more telling us how cool the motor is going to run. And so if you have a surface area that is near the volume of the motor like this 1404, this motor is probably going to run plenty cool. The easiest way to calculate that though is just to do the ratio of the width to height. A 1404 motor is 4 millimeters tall, so we're going to go 4, 8, 12, 16. Between 12 and 16 is 14, right? And so 1404 is a motor that's 3.5 to 1. For every 3.5 millimeters of width, it's 1 millimeter of height. That 3.5 to 1 ratio is awesome. Like for freestyle rigs, you want that ratio to be between 4 and 3 to 1. For like Cinewhoops, you're going to get up into like 5 to 1, maybe even 6 to 1. But you don't want to go below 3-1. When we look at a 1405, we're starting to get towards that limit where we've got 5 millimeters tall, so 5, 10, 15. 15 is one higher than 14. So that's a motor that's like 2.8 to 1 ratio of width to height. That's about as tall as you want to go. You wouldn't want to, so this is a 1405. You wouldn't want to go to a 1305 or a 1205. That's a motor that's not wide enough to keep itself cool. The wider the motor is, the more of the motor is in the airflow of the prop, and that's what keeps the motor cool. When motors get too hot, the magnets, you lose magnetic, the magnets become less magnety, and all of the juice, not all, but a good portion of the juice of the battery is just going to get turned into heat instead of getting turned into thrust. And so that's what the surface area is referring to here. The volume is what tells us how much power the motor is going to make. And the volume of the 1405 is way the hell bigger than the 1404. And so there's a really big difference between 1404 and 1405, which you can see in this volume number. How close, I guess what I should have said before is how close the surface area number is to the volume is how cool the motor is going to run. If you get up to like a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 ratio motor, the surface area is going to be the same, if not bigger, than the volume of the motor. Those are motors that can pick up like a GoPro or something heavy for the weight of the build. For a more freestyle kind of setup, you're going to have more of a gap between the surface area and the volume. But yeah, these long story short, these 1405s are a really, really powerful motor that makes this thing fly ridiculous. I think they're a little bit too big. I think I might go down. RC and Power has the 1404 Plus, which is 1404 and a half. So halfway between these ridiculous motors and a regular 1404. The T-Motor 1404 4600 kV motor, though, is an amazing choice. That is one of the best micromotors we've ever gotten. That would be fantastic on this, but it would just it would just lose a little bit of like the crazy edge that these motors have. And so these are fun, but like, yeah, they're maybe a little bit too much. Unless you're flying bigger spots or you really want that extra jam. But yeah, this thing has been really, really fun to fly over the past couple days. I've got an edit coming up. So there's 2 edits that went up for patrons in Patron Hangout over on my Discord, which is linked from CiottiFPV.com. And then there's going to be an open to everybody edit with... it's actually it's different flight footage. It's a whole different edit, but it's no stabilization here and then gyro flow here, so you can watch them simultaneously in 4x3. And so 16:9 framing and then 2 4x3 files fit half decent. The edits that patrons have access to are cropped down to 16:9. And they're just full screen. Each one of those full screen. And they're different chunks from the flying footage. So, yeah, bunch of cool stuff coming for all of you that like to actually watch stuff on YouTube in 4K rather than these live streams that YouTube hammers the quality on. Man, I have indigestion like a son of a bitch right now. For anybody that that can't see the chat, this is the link to the motor stator volume calculator. Really, really handy little tool. I stole that from Mighty Car Mods. Go subscribe to their YouTube channel. They are the absolute best. Package for my dad came in. Thank you so much, Dad. He got me an 04 air unit. The one live stream where I was like, man, I hope that these don't get discontinued. My dad jumped on the eBay and snagged one of these, which is very, very cool. As well as a couple of filters, which is awesome. And then a package from Beta FPV arrived today, which is super exciting. I have been cranking as hard and as fast as I possibly can all day today. I'm actually like kind of tired, which is pretty rare. I'm usually like absolutely freaking out by this time of night, full of energy. But I've been doing as much as I possibly can today. I thought that I would be able to get the Caillou Mini put back together and up in the air. I was really hoping to get some flight footage of this. With this on 3S, this now has the JHE MCU GHF 435 AIO V2, which is a 20 amp 2 to 4S AIO that I'm going to be running on 3S. And so the previous AIO that was in here let go. It was only a 12 amp, and I was asking a lot from it. I put these, I was running on 2S, and I put these 1203, what's the KV? 11,500 KV motors on there. And it was a lot. And so the 12 amp ESC did not hold up, but that was kind of okay because the Caillou Mini, especially when you put an 04 wide on it. I now have a regular 04 on it because the 04 wide is in this, the DJI Flywoo old school gyro 04 wide is in here. And then the Flywoo old school 04 wide is now in here, which Beta FPV just sent to me, which we're going to talk about in a second. And so, yeah, I put this Caillou Mini back together with the regular 04. This print, though, you can see like there's a big empty hole in this print. You can actually use ND filters on this, which is just awesome. The round Flywoo ND filters with the little bayonet mounts that are designed to be used on these really cool little 04 camera holder pieces. Yeah, those filters, you just push it right inside of this open area and it just slots right in there, which is really, really cool. So yeah, the Caillou Mini is going to live with what we're going to start calling the 04 Light Narrow. It's going to have the narrow in it for a little bit here. At some point, I do want to get an 04 Light Wide back into this. But we'll see how things shake out with the Stankalotopus and with this build here. But yeah, I didn't quite get it done. I got everything knocked out, and then I was actually getting ready to put props on this to go fly it, and I remembered that these are 2S only motors, 11,500 kV on a 2.5 inch prop. You cannot run that on 3S. So I need to swap the motors out. I have a set of RC & Power 1204 8000s, which are the ones that I think I'm most excited about. But before I go to those motors, Matthew Arose sent over a set of T-Motor 1203 7000 kV motors that we ran on here on 2S, and they didn't have quite enough power. They were still pretty good, actually, but didn't have quite enough power. And so these T-Motors are going to go on here first. We'll see how they are, and then... So these are the 1203s, and then the 1204s are going to go on with 1,000 extra kV and an extra millimeter of stator height, which should make a big difference. And we'll see which ones have the best balance of like power and runtime. I'm really looking forward to the 1204s. I think they're going to be sort of the standouts, mainly because of how much fun this guy has been on motors that are like big, like really fat. When you put slightly bigger than normal and or slightly higher kV than normal, in this case it's both, motors onto a build, what you're feeling, like that razor sharpness, is response time. It's a really quick response time. Anytime this thing wants to do any movement, the rotating assembly, which is the propeller screws, and the motor bell, have to accelerate. And on the other side of the quad, they're going to decelerate. And so when you move the sticks, that rotating assembly, the weight of that rotating assembly versus the power that it can produce is the response time to get things spinning and get this thing to react really quick. Most bind and flies at this point are sold on runtime. All anybody seems to care about anymore is runtime, which is such a shame because who cares? The batteries are so cheap for these things. You can easily get 3 minutes runtime with great power. That's what you should be flying. You should be flying something that gives you 3 minutes of runtime, and then you take a second, you swap the battery out, and you fly another battery. This like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minute runtime thing is just, it's stupid. Like, it doesn't take that long to swap a battery out. And like, who can fly hard freestyle for 6 minutes straight? Like, I'm exhausted at the end of 4. 3 minutes is the right number, and everything will be better. It'll crash better because it'll be lighter, or it'll have more power, so it'll have better response time. If it has too much power, you just put a throttle expo. You put throttle expo in there and tames it down. It's so easy to get, you know, even an overpowered rig to be flyable nowadays. So yeah, unfortunately, most of the builds out there, most of like the, hey, this is the appropriate motor size for this, they're going to be a little bit too small. And so, yeah, 9 times out of 10, like if there's a right motor for a specific like size propeller, all up weight, type of a build, if you go like 1 millimeter wider or 1 millimeter taller, you're going to get that next level of, or if you do it with KV, if you go like a couple of hundred KV higher, at least a couple of hundred KV higher, yeah, you're going to get that next level of response time where you don't have to like do crazy shit like push the feed forward really high or push the PIDs like crazy to get that really sharp feeling out of the quad. You'll be able to run damn near stock PIDs, and still have something that's like just on top of every single stick movement that you put in. The trade-off, which is super interesting, and it's funny because I remember this. I remember this from back when I was flying a lot of 5-inch stuff. And I would go back and forth between a 5-inch build on like 2306s dialed in to a 3-inch build on like 1404s, for example. And the 5-inch builds would always have that little bit of extra crispness, that little bit of better response time, because loads and loads and loads of people were dialing 5-inch rigs in to get that the ratio of like how much power the motors make to the weight of the rotating assembly perfect, so you get that like mind reading sort of experience out of the quad. And on the Caillou Mini, I think that's going to be the difference between 1203 and 1204. So I'm really, really, really excited to get this thing up in the air. I'm hoping to get it up in the air tomorrow, because Friday and Saturday are going to be a lot of work. Sage is moving into an apartment by Emory. And so, yeah, Friday and Saturday are going to be crazy. But I'm going to make sure that I get some of this stuff. I'm going to make sure I get some flight footage from all this stuff for you guys at the very least by Saturday, but probably by Friday as well. So that's the Caillou Mini. All I need to do is swap these motors out because they're way too high of a KV for 3S. It is now ready to go on for 3S. So close, but no cigar. Like I said, I was hoping to get some flight footage of this today, but didn't quite get it done. So yeah, I stopped working on that a little bit ago, and I moved over to this awesome package of stuff that Beta FPV very kindly sent over. When they first announced the new Meteor 04 setup, I messaged Ellie right away, who's my contact over there, and I was like, hey, I'm super interested. I've been trying to get jello-free footage. I love what you did with the little rubber grommets. Super interested in doing some comparisons on the live stream of 1.8-inch setup versus 1.4-inch. Maybe even I can throw in some 1.6 or 1.2, depending on how this mounts. we won't be looking at any 1.2 or 1.6 inch prop footage from this really cool new canopy design, because it is a completely, like, this canopy will only ever work on these two frames. This is their new 1.8 inch frame. This is their new 1.4 inch frame. And these frames have these little horseshoe looking bastards in all four corners. And that's what these rubber grommets hook into. And so there is no way to put this canopy on any other frame than these two. So these are what we're limited to, which is, it's a little bit of, I'm hoping that they come out with 1.2 and 1.6 inch frames that'll work with this canopy, because that's where we have more prop options. But we can probably get these two to work. I flew a half a battery on this right before the live stream. I just barely got this thing done. I did not, this is like zero tuning. What I basically did is I took the previous cross style AIO that they'd sent me months and months ago, with the old school 04 matrix setup, and I just did a diff and dumped it onto the new board, because this was a flying AIO and it's the same AIO. And so it's not like specifically tuned for this, but it has a little bit of love on there. But I have not had a chance to actually go into this, go into beta flight on this AIO and do anything other than just dump that diff file into it. So this is a little bit rough at the moment, but I did want to at least get this up in the air. So this is the 1.8 inch frame. It's got their new 1102 21,000, I think they are, right? Yeah, 21,000 kV motors. And then I really quickly ran it on one of their 480 mAh batteries. It was dark by the time I got it done, so I just tried to fly it around the house here. And it didn't go great. In fairness, this is not an indoor setup. This is a 1.8 inch build has no business flying around inside. But I do want to at least give you something from this thing. I can't really live fly it. We will live fly some analog later if we have some time. But yeah, so it's a little dark. Let me... again, I was in such a hurry that, like, I just didn't have time to do anything. Okay, so that should be a lot better. Why was that GoPro LUT turned on? That's a little weird. Yeah, boy, that was a mess. I'm gonna leave it like this. I know this doesn't look great, but I'm just gonna leave it a little bit brightened up so that you can see what's going on here. So yeah, this was flying around the house just like as quickly as I possibly could get it built and up in the air. The 1102 21,000s feel fine. In fairness, like, this is the lighter battery. This battery is probably not going to give 2 minutes of runtime. But yeah, I was kind of surprised at how decent it felt until I started bumping into stuff. Like, it's really difficult to fly in this space regardless. But then you put in the latency of 04 and the weight of a 1.8 inch build, right? Big 1102 motors, big old 480 mAh battery, bigger frame for the bigger props. And yeah, it's got no business kind of flying around inside, but it is kind of flyable inside. I wasn't trying to do anything too crazy. I did hit that railing pretty hard. I just didn't see it there. But it wasn't that bad. At this point, though, this bobbling around, that is the canopy. The canopy has fallen off of these little horseshoes, which is the first thing that's kind of got me freaked out with this. I kind of limped it downstairs, and then that hit knocked the canopy all the way off, and now it just went completely nutso. And so, yeah, again, the 1.8 inch version of this has no business being flown inside. This is absolutely an outside build, but Um, I'm a little worried that that this canopy is going to pop off a lot. And the way that these little rubber grommets hook onto the canopy and the frame, they are not easy to get put back on there. And I don't really know of a great way to get them to stay in there. Maybe, like, maybe when you put them on there, if you put a blob, what I'm going to try, the first thing I'm going to try is I'm going to put the rubber grommets in each one of these little horseshoes. And then I'm just going to put a bead of E6000 on the outside to close that horseshoe in, so that the rubber grommet can't pop out. I think that it's still going to be able to pull out of there, because, you know, as all rubber grommets, they have fairly skinny tops and bottoms, you know? But that's going to be the first thing I try to kind of get these held in, because, like, that crash into the railing, like, that's the amount of energy that you're going to have in, like, pretty much any crash outdoors, right? Like, bump, like, because you're going to be flying a lot faster outdoors, right? And so, yeah, it's tough. It took me a while to figure out how to get these rubber grommets. This rear one is kind of the worst, and there you can kind of see the horseshoe. And so again, on the canopy here, I'm going to put the rubber grommet in, and then I'm just going to close that little gap on the top there with E6000. If you look at this rubber grommet here that didn't pop out on the side, that's the spot. I'm just going to close in that little area there between the white with E6000, and hopefully that'll be enough to keep these things in. I am cautiously optimistic. I really, really, really wish and or hope that they make a 2S version of this frame, because I can just tell that this is a really good design. This sled, for the camera and VTX and antenna, is really well designed. They've basically done something called mass damping, which is, if you want something to not vibrate, you can put it on rubber grommets to isolate it, but you want to put as much weight here as possible. The heavier this is, the more everything is going to be able to vibrate underneath it without imparting that energy into this. And so I really love that they've got the AIO screwed in here, to add some extra weight to this top plate. And I think this is going to do an amazing job in getting you flight footage that you can run through gyro flow, and or eliminating jello. The jello thing is interesting. Sometimes soft mounting can introduce jello, and like hard mounting can be better in terms of jello. Sometimes it's the opposite. In terms of using gyroflow or being able to use gyroflow without it freaking out, the soft mounting seems to be super important at the moment. But Jamie Fly's FPV and possibly gyroflow themselves have some really cool solutions coming that will look at Jamie is almost like hers is, it seems like it's almost ready. It's called I think it's called Gyro Doctor. It looks at the gyro data from these flight files, and it finds the aliasing or the clipping in the gyro data. It finds the bad gyro data and basically fixes it. And it works really, really well, like really, really, really well. And so we might not need to have the soft mounted setup before too long. That kind of remains to be seen. You know, it all needs to get tested a lot, right? So yeah, when you soft mount the canopy like this, like I said, it has the potential of helping out with jello, but typically you're going to take care of jello with ND filters. Typically jello is because the shutter speed has gone super high. You're always going to have a little bit of vibration on these things, and bringing the shutter speed back down is the easiest sort of solution for that. And like I said, sometimes when you soft mount the camera and or canopy, it can actually introduce jello. There's always going to be vibrations. And so if that vibration comes up through the soft mounting, which it will, and it's vibrating at a frequency that doesn't jive with your shutter speed, you're going to have it. So yeah, this is a really cool solution. I love how far forward the camera is. I have this camera set. Oh, it looks like the adjustment slipped. I had this camera set for the lowest possible up tilt. It looks like on the crash, one of these screws slipped. And there was no duct in view at all. And I really like that. My sort of long-term plan, hope, for this canopy is that I can build this to be as light as possible on the 1.4 inch frame with high KV 802s and the tri-blade 1.4 inch props, and get and basically have sort of like the lightest weight 04 wide setup where you can put an ND filter on here, and essentially you've got the lightest weight, no compromise setup, right? Like the little RC drift car chasing 04 narrow build, that's going to be the lightest weight 04 build, period, like full stop. But there's a lot of compromises to this build. This is what we're talking about here. This is a Newbie Drone Cockroach V3 frame, which I use because it has these really handy little hooks molded in up front. And then we've got an itty bitty 3D printed 04 narrow holder on the front here. The double stack, the old school beta, I'm sorry, not the old school, the new beta FPV Matrix AIO designed for the 04, and then 703 with 703 32,000s with HQ 1.2 by 0.9 by 3 propellers. This gets pretty much exactly every single battery, a minute and 50 to a minute and 55 seconds of runtime out of a full, not abused 1S 300 mAh Tiny Whoop BT 2.0 battery. When I'm chasing the little RC drift cars, they change directions a lot, so I'm constantly moving back and forth. If I fly this thing super gentle, I can get over 2 minutes of runtime. But that runtime is not great. This is also super optimized for like staying really low to the ground and chasing those guys, and so the power to weight ratio is not great. But I don't need a good power to weight ratio for doing that. You know, drifting is very gentle and very slow, basically, so you don't need a lot of power. All the transitions happen very gently. If I were to put like the Weebleed 40,000 kV motors on this, or any of the other more powerful motors, the runtime would just go to nothing. It would be like a minute and 30 seconds, even maybe a minute of runtime to try to like freestyle this thing. It's not really doable. Like freestyling indoors with the 04 light or narrow or any of them, it's too much latency. It's too heavy. It's not fun. It's doable. You can do it, but like it's not the fun flight experience that analog is. And like inside the house, you don't have Scraggle, so like you don't really need the quality of HD to fly inside the house. Analog is totally fine. But like this is as light as we're ever gonna move an 04 narrow around. But again, with lots of sort of sacrifices. This setup here, which will look like this once I manage to get it back together. It must have taken me like a half an hour to get these grommets onto the canopy, and then it's once you have the grommets onto the canopy, and the left and right side are super easy to get them on. It's the front and the back that has been very difficult for me to get these grommets in. Once you have them on the canopy, getting them onto the frame is a lot easier. You just kind of plop the canopy down. You got to plug in, right? To the 04, but then you basically just put the canopy down on there, line the grommets up like where they should be on the little horseshoes, and then you just kind of like take like a skinny screwdriver and you just sort of like pull them out. I'm never going to be able to show you while I'm holding it, while I'm trying to hold it for the camera, but it's easy. You take them out like that and then you push them in. Unfortunately, in those crashes, it pulled the front and rear grommets out of the canopy, which is like the worst. So I gotta maybe I'll start doing it now. I'll show you how long it takes to get these in here by starting to do it right now, and hopefully by the end of the stream I'll be able to get them. But yeah, the assembly is a little bit tough, and I think the long and short here is that this new Meteor is not really going to be crashable. If you crash this thing with any kind of speed, there's a good chance this canopy is going to pull off, and it very well might not be flyable back to yourselves. I just got the front one. Maybe I'm getting the hang of it. It's this rear one, though, that's really difficult. So yeah, this is a cinematic setup because of these. Maybe once I close these gaps with E6000 on the canopy and on the frame, maybe it'll get a little bit better. But like, you know, these grommets are very, very thin, very light, loose, kind of low durometer rubber. They're always going to be able to pretty easily pull out of a spot that's kind of locking them in, right? I wish there was a way. It looked initially in the pictures like we were running screws down through these. But I think that was just in the 3D render. Because, yeah, there's nowhere to run a screw down. I guess technically you could run, if you got just the right screw, you could run it down the middle of this and then put a nut on the bottom. I'm probably going to end up trying that too. I'm going to see if I can find like a plastic screw that'll fit through the middle of this. Although, see, the problem with that is going to be these little rubber grommets, or I think these are actually called bobbins. Whatever, you know exactly what these are. If you put something solid through the middle of this, it's not going to move around properly anymore. It's going to want to like move in a very weird way. And so that kind of, yeah, at that point you might be almost hard mounting the thing, and so that could cause some other issues. But yeah, this is going to be really good as like a super lightweight cinematic kind of platform, especially on this 1.8 inch build. But I really wish, I really hope that at some point we get a 2S version of this frame, because as we've learned in the past, with these bigger whoops, 2S just does everything better. Just everything. You get more efficiency, you get more runtime, you have more of a motor selection. You don't have to like pinch grams. It's got plenty of power and efficiency for, you know, if you want to run like a heavier canopy or a better antenna, or, right? You don't have like all these crazy tiny whoop things where you're like, no, I need to save a half a gram with this antenna that's not going to work as well, right? A lot of that goes out the window with 2S. Whereas on 1S, you got to kind of pay attention to that stuff. Like those things do add up. And 1S is really at the limit of its performance on a really gnarly 1.2 inch propeller, 65 millimeter motor to motor tiny whoop. How could you possibly think that it would still hold up on 1.6 inch props, 1.8 inch props, right? It just doesn't make sense. It hangs in there and you can build stuff that flies, but you don't get that like incredible razor sharp flight experience that some of us are kind of spoiled by and are looking for. So yeah, there's that. Man, I told you this rear one is difficult. This rear one's really, really hard to get in here. I did something a little bit different. They give you some screws, and they want you to screw your VTX directly to the top plate, basically hard mounting it. I took a couple of really skinny stack mounting grommets. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but just take my word for it. I put a couple of stack mount grommets on the 3 spots that get screwed in, and then I ran a slightly longer screw through these, just to have a little bit. I didn't like having a metal screw directly onto the PCB of the 04 Lite VTX, just the 04, yeah, Lite VTX. And I have tiny whoop screws for the last decade, and so I have some that are like a little bit longer, and so that worked out pretty well. But other than that, yeah, I just built this standard. I used one of my ORT Micro V's with the slightly longer shrink wrap and the custom length, which you can get on my Etsy store. And yeah, this build looks great, but I have a funny feeling that this canopy is going to rip off even with the E6000, but we're going to find out. And I'm excited to fly this more. I was annoyed that I didn't get this up in the air for more than just that one battery tonight. So yeah, I'll get this up in the air tomorrow for sure. I'm going to do a bunch of batteries on the 1.8 inch setup here, and then I'm going to move it over to the 1.4 inch. I thought that I had a set of tree topper motors, which are 802 32,500, but I think I must have sold them. I think those are going to be the best possible motor to run on this 1.4 inch setup. But I'm going to dig around. I have some slightly lower KV 802s that I'll try in the interim, but I think I'm going to end up ordering. Well, I'll run those and see how they are. If we're close to being good, I'll probably order up a set of the tree toppers. But yeah, 702 is not going to work on this. 802 is going to be the absolute smallest motor that you're going to be able to run on this. I can just sort of tell you that for sure, knowing the weight of this. Speaking of, let's weigh this. Again, massive shout out to CiottiFPV for sending this stuff over. They also sent an extra one of the 75 Pro frames and a matching one of the new canopies. These two are going to be a giveaway. I kind of wanted to do it tonight, but I'm just not going to have enough time. And then they sent an extra. They sent the 65 Pro frames in black and white, which is perfect. And then they sent me a black and white canopy, and so I'm mixing and matching. I'm doing the white canopy on the black frame because I'm a nerd. But yeah, these two I'm keeping as spares. And then, of course, they sent the. It's not a bind and fly, but it's just this. It's all the electronics other than the 04. And it comes with the blue canopy, of course, and a big old bag of grommets and screws and, you know, all the things that you need. Fairly easy to put together. The instructions aren't great, I'll admit, but you'll figure it out. The new canopy, ORT Micro V antenna, Flywoo old school 04 Lite, which is the same as the DJI one. 15.4 grams. That's pretty heavy. But that's what happens when you push the camera really far forward, and the 04 wide is not light. Like it's got some weight to it. And then the 75 Pro frame with the motors, with these props, with the AIO is 24.3. So all said and done, we are at 40 grams, which is heavy for a 1S rig for sure. To give you some perspective, my favorite flying 1.6 inch prop analog build is 24 grams. So half the weight. This has smaller propellers, no second board, no giant canopy, no giant camera, right? I guess it's not half as much. I thought it was 49. It's 39.6. This is 40 grams. 40 grams versus 24 grams. So not quite half, but almost, right? So yeah, this is heavy. We knew that. We absolutely knew that that was going to be the case here. I want to do one more weight measurement though. What I've realized in my time with these the 04 wide and the 04 narrow is that for rigs and this build is what is where I realized this. This had the 04 narrow on it. And I was kind of starting to get used to it a little bit, but it just never felt quite right because this is fast as shit. This is a big power 3-inch rig. This will do probably 80, 90 miles an hour. This can boogie. And it's a full-blown, like, durable, you know, big motor protection here. Basher rig. This is for hard freestyle. Hard freestyle, you go real fast sometimes, you go real slow sometimes. And so you're sometimes flying up here, sometimes you're flying like that. You need a lot of field of view in order to do that comfortably. And so when this had the 04 narrow on it, I never felt that level of comfort. The first battery I flew on this with the DJI 04 light wide, it was just like, yep, there it is. Okay, now it just feels right. It just feels normal with that setup, where it just didn't feel quite normal previously. Something like this is not fast. It's actually pretty slow. And for slower stuff, I have had no problem whatsoever with the 04 light narrow. I actually kind of like it better on this stuff. For chasing little RC drift cars, this having less field of view just basically means that it's zoomed in. And so I don't have to get as close to them to fill the frame up with the little RC drift car, right? If this was wide angle, it'd be heavier, and I would have to be all the way here. And it would be like a fisheye kind of shot. This 04 light narrow is a super linear image, and it looks really nice. It's just, if you have a build that you want to fly faster with it, it can become challenging. And that's when a lot of the people that say like they can't fly with it, I think that's why. I think it's because they're trying to fly really fast. I think if they slowed down, just force yourself to fly slower or build stuff that's lighter and with more wind resistance, I think that they would have a much better time, because that's been my experience. Like, so this guy here, this is the 2S 1.6 inch. This was the Mobula 704 that they sent me that I swapped into the smaller frame. This has always had the 04 narrow on it, and I've never had a single problem with this thing. But it's slow. It's a whoop, right? It's super lightweight. It's got really tall guards, ducts, whatever you want to call them. And so this thing chugs along somewhat slowly, and that's fine. It's little. That's what little rigs are for, right? Going slow, ducking in and out between like each different, you know, bush or flower stem in your garden, right? Stuff like that. This has the wide, which is great for the people that absolutely can't stand flying the narrow, but do we need it? Do we need the wide on something that's gonna be slow like this, right? That's kind of my main concern. And I wanted to do this before the stream, but again, I just ran out of time. I want to weigh. So if you can stand to fly slower, or if you're just gonna, you know, build something specifically to fly slower, which I think you kind of should, what's the weight difference here is sort of like the big question. And I could have sworn that I had the old school canopies. Oh man, what the hell? Where's the... What did I do with the previous generation of 04? Hey, here it is. Cool. This is the previous gen of Beta FPV Meteor canopy. This is also soft mounted. Only the camera is soft mounted in here, but it's still soft mounted, so it's still a really good comparison here. This is the hardware for this canopy. And I have an 04 air unit here that I can use to weigh this. And I'm super curious to see what the difference is between this canopy setup here, the new canopy setup with the wide, and the old one. Because, again, these are going to be really slow, and so you might not need the 04 wide on these. I kind of think you don't. But let's just take a quick look. So here's an 04 narrow. Here's the canopy. And then here's all the hardware. The little rubber guys are not in here, so I'm going to leave this in this little plastic bag. This plastic bag is probably about the weight of the rubber guys. Wow, okay. Hold on. Am I forgetting something? Antenna. I'm forgetting the antenna. Thank God. This is a slightly heavier antenna, but... Oh, that didn't help. Hang on. Let me just... It's got the cable harness. This one actually has a longer harness on it and a longer antenna. Okay, so the old setup is 12 grams. The old setup is here, and it's 12 grams. Versus the new setup. Oh, okay, 15.5. I thought that... Why did I think the new setup was heavy? Was a lot heavier. Okay, so that's not that bad. 15.4. Was it 15.5 grams a second ago? Okay, so that's actually really good. 50, because it's also the bigger lens, the bigger, better lens, right? So yeah, 15.4 for the new setup here with no duct in view, which is really, really nice. And you can put you can clip ND filters directly to it. Call it 15.5 versus... Do it real quick. Versus 12. 12 versus 15.5. So 3.5 grams to have the camera pushed forward and to use the wide angle actual camera itself. That means that this canopy is because the wide angle lens and camera are significantly heavier. That means that this canopy is barely any heavier than this. That's pretty impressive. But this old school setup is regular mounting, just regular old 25.5 by 25.5 mounting. And so you could put this on anything, right? I had this on the 2S 1.6 inch build. I had this on a 1S build that I was trying to fly inside. So yeah, and this is gonna be screwed down, so this is not gonna rip off when you crash hard, right? And so like this is gonna be much more of a proper freestyle setup. Or, you know, and there's other canopies like this is I'm using these, I'm comparing these two because A, they're both from Beta FPV, but B, they're both soft mounted. You can save a little bit of weight by going to the not soft mounted Happy Model 04 holder canopy. This guy here, which I've had really, really good luck with. And it's even more durable, and you're not going to have any weird issues with like needing to drop a notch filter on there because the camera is vibrating around on the soft mounts. And so, yeah, there's a couple of different options there. I'm diving in pretty deep here because the live stream tonight is which 04 wide setup is best for you. And instead of just talking about the 04 wide, I think we should also talk about the 04 narrow because I think that there are situations where that is better. 2.5 grams difference between these two is not a lot unless you're going to fly inside. If you're flying inside, that 2.5 grams is absolutely going to make a difference. And so this might be a better setup for you than this. I think, again, with the ability to run ND filters on this definitely makes it better outside for sure. I'm hoping that we can figure out a way to get these grommets to not pop out. But honestly, I don't see... If you get these grommets to not pop out, they're going to start to tear. And this is just never going to be fully freestyle durable. I cannot possibly imagine that. And so, yeah, this is more of like a cinematic setup, whereas with this or with the Happy Model canopy, you can build it and thrash it. Like this 2S build is disgusting and banged up and scraped to hell. This has been battered. Like I have crashed this thing so hard so many times, and I've only broken one 04 and arrow on it. And so you can build these things for proper crashy, sketchy flying freestyle. I think that the old Beta FPV Meteor setup is kind of somewhere in between. You're physically screwing this down to the frame, so it's never gonna like rip off or anything like that. Unfortunately, there's no way to run ND filters on this setup. So like you're gonna fly early in the morning and then towards the end of the day. And then you've got this new setup, which is, I don't think it's ever going to be really super freestyleable, but this could be so much fun for like cinematic stuff, and or like going down to if like your city near you is not super windy, a setup like this going downtown and just like railing all the buildings and diving down all the buildings and whatnot. Yeah, you're gonna 1S is gonna struggle a little bit. Which is why I really wish they would do this in 2S. I think this would make so much more sense on 2S to get us that extra runtime and power and whatnot. But yeah, this will be super fun for that. Just don't crash it, because when this canopy rips off, you might not be able to take this thing back off. I couldn't. It was not flyable on that second crash a minute in. And so yeah, I'm really, really, really impressed by this. But I can't. I hope that we can figure out a way to keep that canopy down on that thing, because yeah, it popping off is gonna get sort of a little bit old, I think. And it's always kind of tough. Like it's. I mean, yeah, you build like a lifter, and like obviously you're not gonna crash that, right? And so like we have the ability to build stuff that we don't crash, but this is a tiny whoop. Like, this is a fun thing to just kind of fly around. This is not like a professional filming tool, although I mean it kind of. 04 is so good. The 04 lights are so good that like you kind of can, and like the cycling gigs that I've done, and I've sent the TV truck 04 light footage. They've taken a bunch of those shots, and so even like, you know, professional camera crews are okay enough with 04 footage. Yeah, it's really bordering on being good enough for like actual work, at which point this really starts to be kind of amazing. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to get this rear grommet back in. It's definitely easier to do it like this than to try to put it in the frame first. So don't say that. Don't say you're putting it in the wrong side, you dummy. I wonder if there's a trick to this. I would love it if whoever does this at Beta FPV would make a quick little video, because they're doing this at the factory for the bind and flies. So someone is sitting there doing this, and it can't possibly take them a half an hour every time they hit the rear grommet. There's got to be a little bit of a secret. I don't think the secret is dental floss, because there's nowhere to run the dental floss, unless I take this VTX out every time, which is unrealistic. So yeah, I'm not super sure about this here, but I don't know. I'll keep trying. Maybe I'll figure out a little trick to doing this. The problem is this piece of plastic is just in the way. Like my finger won't, like, I just can't. I've got rabies. It's just maddening. I'll come back to that. So yeah, again, shout out to Beta FPV. They also sent me some of the new props, the 1811s and the 1409s, both from GemFan. I'm interested to run these props as well. They should be durable, unlike all these HQ ultralights, but usually the Gemfan props aren't quite as well balanced and or a little bit heavier. But the durability is the most important bit. So yeah. That's my mailbag. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me really quickly just move a couple of things out of the way. I have this, but I need those little rubber guys. I gotta figure out where I put those. I've got a bag somewhere with them, I'm sure. It's probably right there, staring right at me. But yeah, I have from the Meteor 65 that they sent me a while ago. I left it built up here, and then with this 04 Narrow that just showed up, I'm gonna rebuild this, and so I'm gonna test this setup with the 04 Light versus this with the 04 Wide, as well as this. I'm really interested to see, you know, when we save that 2.5 grams on this and we can drop down to a 1.2 inch prop, 65 millimeter motor to motor setup, how does that compare to 1.4 inch with the extra weight versus if I can find the time and or patience, I'll move this setup here over to the... Oh, wait, no, these are 5 amp FETs. Nah, I won't do that. We're going to have to skip 1.6 inch. But, yeah, I'll be interested to kind of see how each one of these flies. And so, yeah, cool stuff coming up. Which 04 Wide is build is best for you? Is a question that I'm hoping someone has, and they click on this, and then I help them. It's going to be all about where do you want to fly and what kind of a pilot are you? Which are really like the two biggest things that nobody ever talks about, right? When somebody wants to do a new build, they just go on the internet and say, I want to do a new build. What should I build? Which is the most worthless thing to do because there's no info in there. And now you're opening the door for every single Tom, Dick, and Harry, all three of them, to say, you should build this. I just bought it, and it's the greatest thing ever. I'm the smartest person in the world because I bought this. It does you no good whatsoever. What should I build next is a question that has everything to do with, like, when I do a build planning session with people through Fiverr, which is linked on CiottiFPV.com, I'll ask like 20 minutes of questions to get to the bottom of that and to kind of figure that out. What's like the best build for you as a pilot, what you're doing with the flight footage, who's watching it, how long you've been flying, how often you crash, all these things, right? Two of the biggest factors, though, back to trying to put this on here. Two of the biggest factors, though, are going to be where do you want to fly it and what kind of flying are you going to do? Long range versus chill freestyle versus thrashy freestyle versus bando bashing, right? Because that tells a lot about like how often it's going to be crashed, how hard it's going to hit, stuff like that, what kind of a power to weight ratio you want. And so you can now put 04 Wide into, I mean, hell, with this setup here, you can put, sorry, not 04 Wide, sorry, this is only 04 Normal. 04 Wide, the smallest you can put it in is this sled here. And this sled only works in a 1.4 inch frame or the 1.8 inch frame. Both 1S. I'm certain that there are already Thingiverse canopies for regular frames with the 04 Wide. A 3D printed canopy is going to be heavy, and then putting that onto a 1.2 inch build, you're not going to like it. You're going to get either terrible runtime or terrible flight performance or all of the above. And so I don't think, and the 04 wide is heavier. And so I don't think it's going to be a realistic option for 1.2 unless you don't care about how it flies. You just want to build the lightest weight 04 wide setup and just put it on your shelf. But that's not that I never give advice surrounding that, like, because I just think that's a, I don't know how else to say it, but it's like a bad idea. It's just like, why build something that's so extreme that's not going to fly good and you're not going to like flying it and you're not going to fly it. It's just going to sit there, right? And so I think realistically, if you want to try to fly 04 wide inside the house, which I don't think you should, because this is going to be too heavy. And this is as light as you're really going to be able to do it. It's just going to be really hard to fly in the house. And this sled is going to pop these grommets off, I think, pretty often. When you're flying inside the house, you're going to crash a lot. And so I think the long and short of it here is that 04 wide, I don't think it really has a home inside the house. I think it's kind of an outside camera platform, which, like, that's okay, because analog is king inside the house. Everything inside it always has been, and I think it always will be, because inside the house latency is everything, and none of these digital systems have good enough latency even on race mode. And we crash constantly, and the digital systems are not as good when we crash them. So yeah, I think that kind of good, right? If you're like, oh, I'm desperate to fly the 04 wide inside the house, well, I think that's easy. It's this sled with the Meteor 65 Pro V2 frame. Don't expect it to be good. It's going to be a Cinewhoop inside the house. It's not going to be a freestyle build inside the house. Freestyle inside the house is analog, period. The end. Hey, I got it. There we go. Whew, that was a fight. So yeah, there we go. There's all 4 grommets on there. And I'm just going to load these up with some E6000. So I'll do this guy. Yeah, once you slot these into the little horseshoes, access is pretty limited. So I'm going to have to do the E6000 on these guys first, let it cure overnight, and then I can put this into the frame, and then I'll E6000 the openings of the horseshoes in here, again, to try to keep these from ejecting. And so, yeah, for inside the house, I don't think 04 wide makes a whole lot of sense. I don't think you're gonna get a setup that's like realistically flyable, fun flyable. I think it's gonna be a Cinewhoop. But if you're doing like home fly-through tours or something like that for real estate, this could be really cool, because it's gonna be so lightweight that it's going to track a really nice straight line. It's going to be super accurate. You're just going to you're going to crash, because we always crash when we fly indoors. And so you're absolutely going to have to figure out how to get these grommets not to eject, because putting these grommets back in. So yeah. Now we start talking about flying outside. 04 wide setups for flying outdoors. Where are you going to fly is one of the 2 big things that you're going to want to think about. If you want to go bombing up, so here you go. Here is the second battery that I flew yesterday. If this is what you're looking for, if you want to go pretty fast, blasting up and down the street, if you want to shoot the gap that is the street, right? I came down from those trees and I went down the middle of the street. I did not come down into the garden and go in between 2 leaves that are this far apart, right? Like something this big and powerful and heavy ain't going to do that. You might do it once, but you're certainly not going to do it repeatedly. A 3-inch open prop 249 gram build like this is a great home for the 04 wide, for this kind of flying, this like bigger kind of flying. This backyard feels big with the tiny whoops. It felt tiny with this. But bombing down the street or over the rooftops of all the neighbors' houses, this thing is awesome for that. And so I think it'll work really, really, really well in that kind of a setting. Bigger than 3-inch, you might as well go to the 04 Pro. You get a lot of benefits. The extra weight is not going to matter at all. Yeah, it's a lot more. Well, it's not actually that much more expensive because these wides are more expensive than the 04 Narrow. And so I think it's absolutely worth it, you know, if you're doing like a 4-inch or a 5-inch to go to the 04 Pro. I don't really see why you would run this smaller, lighter setup on those bigger rigs that just aren't going to care about the decrease in weight. And you're going to run into things like breaking this. Like the 04 Pro is always going to be way more durable than this 04 Lite. And so on those bigger, faster, heavier, more powerful rigs, 4-inch, 5-inch, and beyond, I don't think the 04 wide light makes any sense whatsoever. So I feel like 3-inch is really going to be the max, maybe 3.5-inch, but like, to be honest, on a 3.5-inch build, you might as well go to the Pro anyway. So I'm just going to say 3-inch is the biggest for this 04 wide. Another brilliant spot for the 04 wide, though, is going to be the lighter weight open prop 2-inch and 2.5-inch stuff. The Caillou Mini 2.5, the Max Frames M2 2-inch build, the new Max Frames M2.5, I think it's called, or it might be M25. These are awesome, awesome, awesome homes for the 04 wide because they are fast enough that they're sort of, so a big-ish power 250 gram 3-inch build, this is too fast and too dynamic for the 04 Light Narrow. This kind of needs the 04 wide. These 2.5-inch, the 2.5-inch stuff, I think I'll be very interested to fly this. I had one of the 2.5-inch turtles set up on an 04, and it seemed to be okay, but I want to spend a little bit more time on this, especially now that it's 3S and it's got more power, on this 04 Narrow, because I have a feeling that this Caillou Mini on 3S with the 1204 is really good power. I think this is going to be begging for the 04 wide. But if you go 2S or even 1S on the 2.5-inch builds, or even slower down to a 2-inch build, I think that it becomes a split. Like, how do you want to fly? Do you want to fly really fast, bombing down the street? Yeah, okay, the wide. Do you want to do like slower flying, like in between tree branches, in between your garden, all that stuff? I think the 04 Narrow will absolutely work fine for that. And sometimes like that really linear shot is going to look better. And so that is going to be a big part of how you try to sort of figure that out, I think. And then down into the whoops, I just, if it's gonna be an outdoor whoop, on like built on like a Mobula 8 2-inch frame, sure. I think the wide, I know that the wide will work. You know, you can a 2-inch build. You're not gonna be able to do a 2-inch build with this sled because there's only these 2 frames for it. But 1.8 is pretty close, as we talked about. Unfortunately, this is 1S only, and so this is going to be a little bit challenging here. But I think this is perfectly competent, and like if you want to go out flying a kid's toy, right, with 04 wide, this is a hell of a way to do that. If these motors that this thing comes with aren't enough, you can also try the Gep RC 1002 25,000s. But these motors, from what I've seen, I think are enough. And so I think this Meteor 75 V2 bind and fly is a really good choice. So yeah, that I think I think I covered all the bases from smallest to sort of like biggest, where that 04 wide makes sense. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of where it's at, and where it's going to be strongest, and then narrow versus wide is going to be a pretty personal kind of decision, but I think it's going to be mainly be based on like how fast you want to go. If you want to go really fast, the lack of field of view from the 04 light narrow um is totally fine. Takes a little getting used to, but I think it looks good. um Out in public, this is actually a black box flight. What are you guys talking about? I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. All right, I've completely ignored the chat. I apologize. Oh my god, it's 11:40. Jesus. Let me see what I can do to get caught up on the chat. Ryan Sadat says, can confirm that new lens and new pro frames are absolutely amazing. Did you notice those new frames seem to be made of a different type of plastic? They seem more rigid yet durable. So yeah, I guess I haven't talked about these frames. Let me grab the other. No, it's fine. These are the new Meteor 65 and Meteor 75 Pro 2 frames, which are kind of specifically for this new camera sled with these hooks on them. I mean, you could certainly run these on anything, because you don't have to use those. I'm very surprised at how stiff both of these new frames are. It kind of worries me because in the past, when frames have been this stiff, they've been kind of fragile. Like, you know, if it bends, it doesn't break. If it's stiff, it can kind of like almost shatter. So I am cautiously optimistic with these. They did the really nice thing where they put these little slots around the motor screws here so that it's always hitting on plastic, which I absolutely love. And yeah, only time will tell how durable these are actually going to be. And I don't think, I think it'll be hard for us to figure that out, because with this sled on there, you're not going to be crashing this thing hard. It's gonna drive you insane. This popping off. Again, maybe with some E6000 we can keep it from popping off, but I still don't think that you're gonna thrash this. Like, this just doesn't strike me as, and I could totally be wrong, but I just think this is more of a Cinewhoop, which is totally fine. But yeah, these new frames are super interesting. My favorite, though, hands down, is the 65 Pro frame, because it's got the bigger battery bay. The old Meteor 65 Pro frame only held the narrow batteries, and so the most milliamp hours you could get was 300, which is not enough, because when you go up to this 1.4 inch prop frame, you gain a bunch of weight. The propellers are bigger. That demands a bigger motor, and you gain a lot of weight. And then on a 300 mAh battery, you get shit runtime. I was getting like a minute and a half, a minute runtime with a 1.4 inch setup on the V1 frame with decent power. And so this is really cool. I'm really, really excited that we can put a 450 or 550 or 650 mAh battery into this frame here. It also lets us do basically like long range itty bitty builds, right? Like a 1.2 inch prop frame, the biggest battery you can ever put into it is one of these wacky Weebleed 465s, which are hysterical, and you should have one. But the problem with this battery is it hangs way out the front, like it's jousting. And so this battery is kind of tough. Like if you crash with this battery, the battery's gonna hit and it's gonna push, it's gonna rip your BT 2.0 lead off. And so I love that this battery exists, but realistically, we needed the wider battery tray. So this frame is really cool. I really hope that this frame is durable, because this opens up some really cool possibilities for big batteries on the smallest frame possible. That being said, I'm still on the fence whether or not it makes any sense to do a 1.4 inch prop build versus a 1.6 inch prop build. Like I said at the beginning of this live stream, like if you just want to have the smallest possible thing and you don't care about flight characteristics or whatever, like sure, I get it. But I feel like if you're going to do a build as a 1.4, you kind of might as well go up to a 1.6 because there's more and maybe some better prop options. But maybe this frame is like really, really, really good. We won't know until we start crashing it and running a bunch. I'm really happy that they sent me 2 of these because, yeah, I'm going to do like a regular analog setup with one of these frames with the big battery with high KV 802s and see what a competent 1.4 inch setup is versus a 1S 1.6 inch setup, right? I've got that pain in the ass 1.6 inch. So yeah, these 2 new frames are welcome additions. This one for sure, the Meteor 65 Pro V2, this is amazing. This frame here, it's very similar to the old Meteor 75 Pro frame. The ducts are a little bit more narrow, I believe, here, which is good. It does feel a little bit stiffer, and it's probably a little bit lighter. So it's like an incremental improvement, whereas this is a whole new thing. We've never had a frame this small with the wide battery, so this is amazing. I'm so excited for this frame. This one, not super excited, but still, it's probably really good. As long as it's not too stiff that it explodes when we crash it. Where I become worried about these frames is when the temperatures come down. I am fearful of these frames in the wintertime. But we'll find out this winter. So yeah, thank you for mentioning the frames, dude. I almost forgot. Sear says, "Hello, he's outside enjoying his frame. We're all waiting for you to release your frame." Ryan says, "The good old classic Flywoo ND filter view. I'm running all Flywoo filters on 04 Pros and the new wide/old wide, and all of them have those vignettes in the corners." Yeah, it's super annoying. I get it. It is hard to put, in general, across every, camera in the world. It's hard to get an ND filter on there that sits flat enough against the lens to not cause problems, but then not vignette. But it is doable. It is absolutely doable. So yeah, they would have just had to work a little bit harder, but it is what it is. At least it's just barely in the corners. A lot of these 3D printed camera mounts aren't designed properly either, and they have a bunch of TPU in the corners that, of course, you can carve away, which I've showed you guys a couple times, but yeah. Ryan also says, "The only ND filters from Flywoo that I have seen that don't have the vignette are the bayonet style mounts that go on the Flywoo camera shell." Yep, indeed. Mike K says, "I posted my current cart for Beta FPV. Gonna buy all that on Friday or Saturday." Very cool. I do have an affiliate link to Beta FPV, so if you don't mind, go to CiottiFPV.com, hit that. You can probably hit that affiliate link now, and it'll sit in there. Usually affiliate links will sit in your cart for about a week before the website clears them out. So yeah, you can probably do that now. But if you guys want to support me without spending any money or any time, go to my website. I have a shitload of affiliate links. Change your bookmarks to those websites to those affiliate links. And then you'll hit them without even knowing it. Sear says, "Maybe the frame could get named the Air Run Ciotti 3. I'm going to call it that regardless." There was another really good name. I have some other stuff in mind. But that's actually pretty good. CFPV says, "Why did DJI even put a new gyro in the air units?" The most popular guess is that they can't get the MP66 gyros anymore because of human beings' bloodthirstiness for war. And so, yeah. It's super annoying. It's incredible that Flywoo has been able to source enough of the old MP66 gyros, and they're willing to have someone sitting there with a hot air station swapping them out. Like that's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, we got to just focus on that and count our lucky stars. But yeah, they didn't want to. Like it's not. There's people that are like, oh, DJI hates us. They're changing the gyros on us. Like, what? Why? Why would they do that? What? Like, why would they change something in their manufacturing unless they absolutely had to? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, they did not want to do it. And if you want to blame something, blame militaries around the world for eating up all of the FPV stock for the last 2+ years and continuing to. So yeah, it has DJI is we're very lucky to have them. Are they a perfect company? Of course not. None of them are. But we are damn lucky that they do anything for us in the FPV world, because we probably represent like less than 1%, and I don't even think I'm exaggerating here, of their actual market. They probably lose money on us, but then they in theory gain it back from the marketing value of FPV footage with their products being so good. But yeah. And they don't have any interest in our data. They don't care. That's all bullshit. Stop believing that absolute nonsense. They just want to make the best drones in the world, and they just want to sell them and not be bothered with all this bullshit. The reason that they're banned here in the US is because the company Skydio is tied in with the government and have been throwing money at this shit for long enough, and now there are people in power that are disgusting and horrible and will take money to do anything evil. So yeah, but that's another conversation for a different day. Ryan says, tested the new Meteor 65 Pro 2 with the old 04 canopy, and unfortunately it flew like a turd. I think since these are tuned to be front heavy, old school canopy will require a retune for sure. You can't really tune something for front heaviness. You can certainly tune something for more weight on the pitch axis, which is kind of what a front heavy setup does, but not specifically. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily blame it on front heaviness, but yeah, you never know. Hotbox Slave says, I'm planning on using the Siren A F-35 for my next build. You'll love it, dude. Mine is a beast. I plan to use analog, though. Oh, wow. And I don't see a camera mount for analog in the spare parts section. Yeah, there is none. The Siren A was specifically built for the Pro, the 04 Pro. Is the HD0 mount the same mount pattern? Probably, yeah. I didn't know there was an HD0 mount. Okay, so it looks like they might have that. I would not recommend that. The Siren A was specifically meant for that giant camera, and all of the extra weight that thing comes with. If you're going to build analog, it's going to be a lot lighter, and so you can go with the regular Siren F-35, or even better, the Siren F-30. You don't need a 3.5-inch setup for analog. Analog is going to be so lightweight that if you build that into a 3.5-inch platform, it's going to have that like toothpick quality where like the props are huge, but it doesn't have the weight to back it up. And so like when you come off the throttle, it's like it just kind of like stops and it doesn't have any throw. For an analog build, for a much better balance of like you'll have some throw, but you'll also have a good amount of float, you're going to want to be either 2.5-inch or at the biggest 3-inch. So if you're dead set on the quad mola stuff, I mean, they do have a 2.5-inch frame, but it's meant for the digital camera systems. But I mean, you could certainly just put out the JIN, the DJINN, is their 2.5-inch build, and then the Siren F-30 is their 3-inch build. I think you're going to be a lot happier with one of those two than the Siren A F-35. Unless you want it to be heavy. The Siren A F-35 has big ass, thick fucking arms. Everything about that frame is super beefed up. And so like if you want something that's like 300 plus grams, even on analog, the Siren AF35 will do that, and then you'll just run that HD0 mount, and it'll look insane because like the hole for the camera and the whole front end of the Siren AF35 is massive for the huge 04 Pro camera, but you won't see it because you'll be in the goggles, so whatever. But yeah, if it were me doing an analog build with quad mola, it would be the Jin or the Siren F30. But that's just me. Too old to FPV. My dad says magnets lose their reluctance. Reluctance is the word. Thank you, Dad. When hot. Or wet, according to the White House. Sear FPV says, what do you think about 1506 on your frame? So if I'm telling you guys that 1405s are too much and kind of like ridiculous on my frame, a 1506 is just going to be silly. To the point where a 1506 would probably not be good, because if you go too big on the motor and there aren't propellers that are pitchy enough to take advantage of how big and heavy the motor is, you lose performance. And my frame will only swing a 3-inch prop, and so like the most pitchy 3-inch prop there is the Gemfan 3052, and the Gemfan 3052 runs completely fine on a 1404. It runs even better on a 1405. All the way up to 1506, you're going to be under prop. The motor is going to be too big for the propeller. And so you're dragging around a bunch of extra weight, you're losing efficiency, you're not gaining anything from that big of a motor. A 1506 motor is a 3.5-inch propeller motor. Or I guess you could run a 1506 if you wanted to do this, like a really quiet version of this. You could run like a 5-blade Gemfan, or a 6 or 8-blade HQ prop. And then those propellers are so heavy, that a 1506 might make sense, but then this is like super slow and like doesn't really make a lot of sense because there's a bunch of propeller in view. And so, yeah, that build wouldn't make much sense, but that would be the only scenario where that big of a motor you would want to run on a 3-inch setup. Mike K says, thoughts on CO3 versus 4x3 and 16x9 air cameras. I still haven't done that test. But I'm close. I'm close to doing that test. I have the new air camera now in a canopy. I just have to so this is the outdoor 1S 65mm build that I put a couple batteries through in the new backyard, the new flyable backyard, and showed you guys, I want to say on Sunday. This has Happy Model 0702 40,000s on it. I'm going to fly another couple batteries on this. I'm going to come in, I'm going to yank it apart, and I'm going to put this frame onto it, which is the same frame, but with the Beta FPV 0702 30,000s, right? Yeah, the 0702 30,000s, with the same propellers to get a comparison motor to motor. And I'm also going to put this canopy on it. Because I have to take it apart to do all that, I might as well swap the canopy. So I will have a CO3 versus air. I believe this is the 16x9. Let me see. It doesn't say. We'll see once I start flying it. But yeah, we'll take a look at the CO3 versus the air. I have flown this camera once or twice already, and I couldn't tell a difference between it and the CO3. I think maybe it's a little bit lighter, so if you're trying to save every single possible gram, there you go. But yeah, it's going to be very hard to improve on the CO3. That camera is really, really good. And I think it's just such an easy like go-to. If you need a super lightweight tiny whoop camera, like just snag a CO3. It's always nice to have one or two extras kicking around. And away you go. Ryan Sadat says the logic with wide motors staying cool makes total sense, which is why I'm confused to see many Cinewhoops and Cinelifters with super tall and narrow motors. Do you know why that might be? If you are going to ask, if you're going to ask a lot of the motor, the ratio of width to height is super important. And for like freestyle and for smaller builds, because the smaller the propellers get, the less efficient they get, that stuff becomes super 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 important. Cinewhoops have had weird growing pains over the last like 5 years. The first Cinewhoops that came out, there were no motors that made enough power to pick up a GoPro on a 3-inch propeller. And unfortunately, the motor manufacturers just kept adding height. And so they went like 1306 to 1406 to 1407 to 1507. And when they finally got to 1507, now we had enough power for a Cinewhoop to like cruise slowly with a 120 gram GoPro on it. But if you asked more than just slow cruising, it completely fell apart, because a 1507 is a motor that's 2-to-1 ratio, and so a 1507 will get burning hot with like any kind of spirited flying, let's say. And a bunch of us figured that out, and we started to go to 2004s and 2104s and 2204s and 2205s, and that's when Cinewhoop started to fly really good. But there are some people and manufacturers that don't pay any attention, and so they're still using 1507s, which is insane, and those Cinewhoops fly like absolute ass unless you're just slowly cruising. Lifters, a lot of times they won't. Lifters are still not dialed in. They're still fairly new, and so there are plenty of lifters with like these tall motors that get away with it because they're dragging around a way bigger motor than they need. And so, yeah, that's why you'll tend to kind of see that. But I mean, the other kind of thing is that lifters are on a giant propeller that's also very efficient. The bigger the propeller, the more efficient, and so you don't have to absolutely dial in the motor and prop combo perfectly, because there's a shitload of leeway from the motor being so, the propeller being so efficient. And yeah, again, a lot of times too, like they'll like fuck it, throw a big ass motor on it, because like with a lifter, they'll have drastically different payloads. You know, they'll pick up like a big medium format camera on a big heavy gimbal one day, and then they'll be hard mounted a lighter weight like Blackmagic, not medium format camera the next day. And so, you know, when you are building a platform that's going to have drastically different payloads, it makes sense to go with like a giant motor like that. And so a giant, really tall motor where the ratio is off, that'll let them pick up that mega payload and just not fly it hard, right? Pick up that super heavy payload and just chill with it. And like a gimbaled camera payload, you're gonna fly that chill, because if you crash that, it's fucking everything is exploding and it's a ton of money up in the air, right? And so it makes a lot of sense to kind of do that on the Cinelifters. So yeah, that's kind of why you'll see that. Ryan Sadat also says the new Meteor frames as analog builds are going to rip. Going to try the 75 Pro frame with the HQ 1.8 bi-blades. They're going to break constantly. And Gep RC 1002 25,000s. It actually will fly those Gep RC motors are good on there. I think I remember the Beta FPV 1102 22,000s being just as good, and they were a little bit more efficient from the lower KV. And then Ryan says, I think tri-blades might be too much. Yep, for sure they will be. Yeah, you'll hate those HQ 1.8 inch bi-blades. They just break constantly. It's such a shame. Ryan also says, is the Caillou Mini Canopy the one TC Moore designed? No, it's the one that just comes in the big file of 3D print files from Caillou. Jimmy the Cow's in the house. He says, Moo, met Max at the Northwest Whoop event. You fuckers. I'm so goddamn jealous of all you that are in Portland right now. I wanted to go so bad. I messaged Northwest Whoop Championship, like the main Instagram channel, and I was like, hey man, like, is there any extra budget? Like, I would love to like come up there and like, I'll fucking work. I was like, I'll do PID tuning classes, like whatever, man. Like, what can I offer you that's valuable enough to help me out with, you know, at least maybe like split the airfare or something like that. And unfortunately, I didn't hear back from anybody over there. Hopefully next year. Jim the Cow says, met Max and bought a Max M2.5 frame. Wish you could have made it. I armed my 5-inch in my hands just like you. Ouch. Oof. I didn't arm mine in my... Well, I guess I did. Yeah, it did arm while I was holding it. I hope you're okay, dude. That has the potential to be pretty nasty. Ryan says, not sure how, but even though the new Beta FPV 1102 motors are lower kV, they seem to have more low-end grunt / able to pull out of dives better than the old 75 Pro, even though it's 5 or 6 grams heavier. It's because there's no standardization of kV or motor sizing or anything really, and so, you know, they can just... Although, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe the new motor has... the easiest ways to make a motor with lower kV have more power is to either tighten up the air gap or do something with the magnets. Either thicker magnets or stronger magnets. You know, everybody says that they have N52 magnets, but most of the motor magnets are not actually N52 because N52s are expensive. Usually they're like N45. And so maybe the new motors actually have proper N52 magnets. That would be a way to get a bunch more power out of them. So, yeah, I am not going to get through all of these chats. So I'm going to do a couple more. It's a little after midnight. You guys all have to fly your 6 batteries today. I do have some charged, but my stomach is killing me. I've acid reflux for some strange reason right now. I wonder what I ate today that is not agreeing with me. But yeah, I'm going to try to get through a couple more. But there was something that I just thought of that I wanted to do. Oh yeah, we're going to, I can test the, do I have one of the old motors kicking around? I can test the kV of the old motors versus the new motors pretty easily. I just have to find one of the old motors, which unfortunately is easier said than done. There was a point where I was organized. Those days are long gone. I know I have one of those old 1102s kicking around. We will, and I'm actually really curious, but I don't know where they are at the moment. So that's gonna have to wait. But yeah, we are gonna test that. We are absolutely gonna test the old 1102s versus the new ones. I just have to dig them up. But what if I did it on there? Nah, different AIOs. That would not be a fair fight. Yeah, we'll do that maybe on Friday. Subscribe to the channel for that and much more testing in the future. I wish that this Beta FPV package had come yesterday. It came like late in the day today, and I yeah, there's so much testing that I want to do. But hey, Beta FPV will get 2 live streams of they'll probably get a lot more than that. But yeah, shout out to them for sending this stuff over. Very generous, as they always have been. My favorite thing though over the past couple of years with Beta FPV is that they send this stuff over and then they actually listen to us when we give them feedback. They also seem to watch these. They seem to watch the videos that people put up. And they take the feedback and they do stuff with it. They do good stuff with it. It's really, really impressive. They've been knocking my socks off over the last couple of years. So yeah, shout out to them. Another couple of chat comments, and then we're going to shut this mother down. Ryan says, I've been liking the Deep Space 1505 4000 kV with the T 3x3x3 HQ props on 3-inch. Those are a very decent propeller. They're just super fragile. Bought the Seeker 3 as a bind and fly months ago. It's so overpowered but flies well. Never saw a need to change motors and props. J8RT2 says the RCN Power 1204 8000s on 3S is my favorite 2.5-inch motor by far. On a 580 3S battery, I get 5 to 6 minutes cruising and 3 minutes flying hard freestyle with cold motors. Wow, that's 3 minutes flying hard on a 3S 580. I'm hoping I can get a lot more than that. I'm hoping to actually run them on 380 mAh 3S batteries. At the moment, though, what I've got is a 450, which, I've been dying to do this. I've been dying to put this back together and see if this battery will, no. Oh my God. No, not even close. Holy shit, dude. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to need to get some 3S 380s, the yellow GNBs. Wow, yeah, that's not even close. This is not even going to be close either. This is an old school Talon 450 3S, and this is also nowhere near fitting. This is a Lumineer 300 mAh 3S. I assume that this will fit. Nope. I really like these little 3D printed things. I might have to bail on those. Luckily, there are battery strap slots on the top of the Caillou Mini. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to start using a battery strap on here. But yeah, that's okay. I don't want this thing to get too heavy. I don't want to have to run a 3S 450. I'm really hoping to get away with the 380, but we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, those, I'm going to have to pull that top plate back off. These TPU things, I believe Crom designed these. Apparently these are 2S only. Maybe the 3S 830 will fit in them, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. So yeah, I need to get that battery strap set up, figured out. Ryan says, interested in trying 1303 on the Caillou? Not really, to be honest. I know that's a popular motor size for 2.5-inch. Seems like the best balance of power and cooling. I think the 1203s and 1204s will be totally fine. The 1303 ratio, right, 3, 6, 9, 12 is more on like the Cinewoop size. I don't think we need a motor that's that wide. I think 1203, 1204 are going to be the best bet to keep the weight down and still have the power. But we'll see. I think I'm going to leave it there. I'm missing a lot of chat comments. I apologize, guys, but yeah, I'm just feeling like shit at the moment. Double A is in the house. What's up, dude? How you been? Hope you've been doing awesome. Cool. We will reconvene on Friday. I will have much more. I will hopefully have much more flight footage and opinions and experience on these. Today's been an absolute thrash to try to get what I got done in time. Patrons, as a reminder, if you have a minute, I put 2 edits up for you over on my Discord in the Patreon only section. They are both my frame here with the DJI 04 light wide with the old school gyro from Flywoo, the MP66 gyro. This is also your chance to take a look at freestyle flight footage with the old gyro. It's not perfect. There's still some weird judders and whatnot in there. They're not bad though. Like the new school gyro in here would have been a total disaster. And so it's totally usable, but it's not perfect. If you want it to be perfect, it feels like you're gonna have to run it through some sort of gyro fixing software, like what Jamie Fly's FPV is working on. And also, I've heard rumblings that GyroFlow is going to just put this into the software. And so at that point, like, is it really worth it to get the Flywoo DJI wide with the MP66 gyro? for the extra 20 bucks. I think it is, because I can use Rocksteady on this. The newer gyro, the normal gyro for the 04 Lite, Rocksteady goes bananas and freaks out unless you have the camera like perfectly soft mounted, which is very, very difficult to do. And so I think that it is, well, if you were going to order a DJI 04 wide from Flywoo, I think it is worth it to spend the extra 20 bucks to get the old school gyro in there, because then you can run Rocksteady. I don't know why you would run Rocksteady, because like gyro flow is free and you just dump the footage in there and hit the button. I guess if you're going to be flying 100 batteries in a row and you need to offload that flight footage like right away or something like that, yeah, okay, Rocksteady makes sense. Like at the cycling gigs, to be honest, like it would have been really nice to just turn Rocksteady on and at the end of each day just dump the flight footage out of these onto somebody in the truck's laptop and just be like, yep, done, I'm out. It wasn't much more difficult to go back to the hotel, drag all the flight footage to the laptop, dump that into GyroFlow as a batch, and then just throw that up onto a Google Drive. But yeah, if you absolutely need to deliver footage at the end of the event, I get it. And sometimes that is the case, right? Because like getting an edit up as close to the end of the event really does make a difference. So having the ability to run Rocksteady on this Flywoo DJI wide with the MP66 gyro is pretty slick. That's nice to have. I'm glad that I have that that ability to do that with this one. So yeah, there you go, friends. Thanks for hanging. Sorry we were kind of all over the place. Sorry I don't have more flight footage from this setup, but I'm going to have to give this E6000. I gave you a little bit. I gave you a minute of flying around in the house before the canopy ripped off the frame. I'm going to spend some time now seeing if I can kind of troubleshoot that and figure out how to not have that happen. Step one is a bunch of E6000. So thanks for hanging. CiottiFPV.com if you like this kind of stuff and would like to see it continue at the rate that it currently is, which is like, 10 plus hours of live streams a week. Yeah, it's hard to do FPV as a full-time job. It's almost impossible. But I'm doing as best as I possibly can. Spread the word. Tell any friends that you've got to check this out. Grab your favorite time code from the video and post it on the internet. Yeah, we'll see how much we can continue to do this. Cool. Be good, friends. Here comes the last flight file from this guy that you haven't seen yet. There is a crash in there, but which cuts it a little bit short. But I'll go to the battery right before it when that happens. Be good, friends. I'll see you Friday at 7 o'clock Eastern time. Come on. Come on now. Come on now. There it is. Later.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams. Yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a rotor stir tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, they zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile.
Teddy's on pause, side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch, scale terrain, backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Yo, Ciotti behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle Mike. They on the dog drone streets every day and night.
Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive, Teddy.
Push throttle up, feel the beast come alive.
I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy.
Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy's spaghetti, diamond and duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile.
Teddy's spaghetti. Barking at the breeze, falling at top speed things, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile.
Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPVs, fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy's spaghetti and CiottiFPV always proud.